The middle class in Canada has been the backbone of this society, representing hard work, hope for a better future, and the promise of upward mobility. Well, this is not just true in Canada. You would probably define middle class similarly in many different countries. However, in the recent years, there has been a shift in this story in Canada. The middle class, which was once a symbol of economic balance, is now facing significant challenges. In this video, let's explore this topic further and see what can be done to overcome some of these challenges. I know this can be a sensitive topic. I moved to Canada in 2019 and have firsthand witnessed this problem evolve since then. My experience and interest in personal finance led me to take a closer look at it. This video is not an opinion piece, but more grounded in data and research that I have come across. It's a complex subject and here's my attempt to condense it in a small video. Let's begin. Understanding the evolution of the middle class requires a closer look at the past and present definitions of this class. It also requires an examination of the factors that led to its current form. I did not experience it firsthand as I did not grow up here, but I've spoken to many people about it. Historically, the middle class in Canada was defined as those who were neither rich nor poor, often characterized by values of hard work and the aspiration for a better future for their children. When it comes to income, middle class was typically defined as households earning anywhere from $45,000 to $120,000. Yes, it's a wide range, but that's how it was defined. According to the Institute of Research on Public Policy, middle class earnings were defined as those between 50 to 150% of the median earnings level. In the 1970s, the middle class earnings increased rapidly. However, it started peaking in the 1980s. Since then, there has been a slowdown in the middle class earnings. The average income in Canada in 2023 was approximately $60,000. Still in 2023, middle class is considered between $53,000 to $137,000. Despite this range, households earning less than $50,000 and more than $150,000 both consider themselves middle class. You can already feel the disconnect. The middle class has also been a significant factor for immigrants moving to Canada. The promise of a better life has drawn a lot of people from across the globe to Canada. However, it's important to note that the perception and reality of the middle class is no longer aligned. Today, the middle class is perceived as shrinking, with fewer Canadians optimistic about their future. The middle class in Canada was also associated with high levels of satisfaction and happiness. According to a UN-sponsored survey, Canada ranks 6th in global happiness. Unfortunately, this is no longer the case. There are several factors that have contributed to the struggles of the middle class. Let's look at some. The first factor is stagnant wages and rising cost of living. Since early 2000s, the gap between income and expenses for the average Canadian middle class has widened significantly. While labor productivity has increased, the median hourly earnings has not really grown that much. This disparity is compounded by rising costs and overall decline of purchasing power. Additionally, taxes have been on the rise, with the average Canadian family paying over 45% of their budget in taxes. The combination of all these factors has really squeezed the middle class, making it harder for them to maintain their standard of living. The next one is very obvious. It's housing affordability crisis. At this point, the whole world knows that Canada is experiencing a huge housing bubble fueled by over 2 decades of cheap money and lax lending standards. The ratio of home prices to household income has surged to historical extremes, highlighting the unaffordability of housing. In major Canadian cities, property taxes have also risen significantly. Montreal is facing nearly a 5% hike, the largest in 13 years, and Vancouver seeing a 7.5% increase. This crisis has again left middle class struggling, adding to their financial pressures. Next, we have increased debt. The middle class in Canada is again struggling with high levels of debt. The main causes of this are the two factors we just discussed. This debt is even further worsened by the fact that many Canadians have to rely on debt for their everyday expenses. This is putting many middle class families in a very bad financial situation. The fourth factor is globalization and technological change. Globalization and technological changes have really shaken up the Canadian job market. Historically, a lot of Canadian middle class folks used to work in manufacturing jobs, which has now been largely outsourced. These forces are at play in other sectors as well, which has also led to job losses. Overall, there has been a decline in well-paying jobs, especially for those without specialized skills. Again, this is putting a lot of pressure on middle-class families. Next up, we have the impact of immigration. Immigration is becoming quite a polarizing topic in Canada. Being an immigrant myself, I need to look at it from both the lenses. Generally speaking, immigration can lead to demand in housing and services, leading to economic growth. However, it can also lead to competition competition for jobs and resources. Right now, the influx of immigrants is definitely putting a lot of pressure on housing and resources. But there is no simple solution. The careful balance that's required for immigration is quite hard to achieve. We can only hope that we find a sustainable solution in the long run. This brings me to the next point, that is government policies. These policies always play a significant role in shaping the economic landscape for the middle class. While some policies aim to support the middle class, such as targeted inflation relief and investments in job creation, critics argue that more needs to be done to address the challenges faced by this demographic. Again, only time will tell if new policies come into effect that can alleviate the pressure on the middle class. The final factor is pessimism about the future. Right now, the pessimism about the future of Canadian middle class is evident. This survey shows that less than 31% of respondents feel optimistic about the future. The problem with this sentiment is that it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Generally speaking, how you feel will affect how much money you make, how you spend, how you invest, and a lot of other factors that drive the economy. If all of this leads to slower economic growth, it can have more negative impacts on the Canadian middle class. We can keep listing more factors, but these are some of the primary problems the Canadian middle class is facing. While not all of this can be controlled, the question is, what can we do? First, I'll get the most obvious option out of the way, that is leaving Canada. This is a solution that has been getting a lot of media coverage recently, and it's because it's actually being adopted by tens of thousands of people right now. The rising cost of living has led to an increase in the number of immigrants and Canadian citizens leaving the country. In the first half of 2023, about 42,000 individuals left Canada. This number was over 90,000 in 2022 and around 86,000 in 2021. This trend of emigration or reverse immigration has been on the rise since 2019, hitting a 2-decade high. Again, the major reason cited for this is rising living costs and unaffordability of housing. Not only immigrants but even Canadian citizens have been leaving the country. Q3 of 2023 saw a departure of over 32,000 people, a figure only surpassed 3 times in the last 73 years. Let's be honest, it's an option for some, but for most it's not a solution. I came to Canada for certain reasons, and those reasons mostly still hold true. If you want to stay in Canada and build a successful life, here are some steps and strategies that you need to adopt. Firstly, you need basic financial education. There has never been a better time to learn more about personal finance and money management. The biggest problem is that financial education is never part of any curriculum that we come across in our lives. This has been a major problem in society everywhere, but it's extremely important in the context we are discussing today. A TD survey revealed that 70% of Canadian parents don't feel very prepared to support their kids' financial literacy at home. That means they are themselves not that well educated when it comes to money management. It's high time that you also prioritize financial education, not just for you but also for the next generation. To be fair, there is no lack of resources in the world right now. Even right now, as you're watching this video, it's part of financial education, and there are plenty of other resources that you can use online. Start with a basic course on financial education, or check out my videos or even somebody else's, but start somewhere. It's high time you do it. This step will lead you to the next step, that is financial planning and budgeting. These are critical for financial stability, and yet many Canadians are struggling with this. In the past, you could get by without budgeting and expense tracking, but nowadays it's becoming ever so important. Many of us spend more than we earn, often due to immediate gratification or spending on things that we don't really need. We really need to change these habits. Studies show that 40% of people overspend just to impress others. When it comes to budgeting, it's your financial roadmap. You need to understand your income and expenses and allocate money carefully towards the things that are necessary. I often say that budgeting is your gateway to better financial responsibility. Next, we have debt management and credit use. Canadians are increasingly burdened by debt, with many relying on credit cards to manage their expenses. The reliance on high-interest credit card debt can lead to a cycle that is incredibly hard to escape from. It's also becoming quite common for people to turn towards credit card debt for simple purchases such as the latest iPhone. This can be worsened further by using buy now pay later products. All of this can add up really quick and be financially crippling. Next, we have the most complex one, that is housing and living expenses. Reducing these expenses is a key strategy to financial survival. When it comes to housing, there's not much you can do in Canada, so make sure you're living in an area that you can truly afford. Try to make some sacrifices in comfort so you can live happily later. The general rule is to use about 20 to 25% towards your rent. But yes, I understand in Canada it can be very difficult to achieve that percentage. The best you can do is try to minimize it as much as possible. When it comes to living expenses, try to make use of any grocery store discounts that you you might find. Try using apps like Reebok and Flip to find great deals. Remember, delayed gratification is a great strategy for financial planning. Make sure you balance out your wants as much as possible. If you can't afford to take 2 trips in a year, please don't. By simply being mindful of your spending, you can really alleviate the financial pressure. Even though it can be hard in the beginning, it doesn't take too long to build up a good habit. Next, make sure to build up an emergency fund. Did you know that 25% of Canadians can't cover an emergency expense of $500? Try not to be like that, and remember, building an emergency fund is crucial for financial safety so you can take care of unexpected expenses if they arise. It's recommended to have enough savings to cover 3 to 6 months of regular expenses. This fund can be slowly put together over weeks and months. A simple way to do this can be to automate some of your payments towards a savings account. If you don't have an emergency fund, try to make it a priority in the short run. The next is to focus on investing and wealth building. Having an income and saving alone can't make you financially stable. Investing is becoming more and more important to beat inflation and stay ahead of your financial problems. You can start investing wherever you're comfortable. You can start with stocks or bonds or whatever you feel more comfortable with. The S&P 500 ETF can be a great starting point for new investors. Also, make sure to make use of tax-sheltered accounts such as your TFSA, FHSA and RRSP. Again, without investing, it's very challenging to achieve your long-term financial goals and keep up with the rising costs of living. The next one is to take advantage of any tax and government benefits that you might find helpful. For instance, the Canada Workers Benefit is a refundable tax credit designed to assist low-income individuals, with eligible taxpayers receiving over $1,400 in 2023, for example. Make sure to keep all of this in mind, especially when you file your taxes. The final point I want to make is about career development and upskilling. The job market nowadays is rapidly evolving. Especially in the next few years, we are going to see a lot of automation and the impact of artificial intelligence coming into play in the job market. It's important to always be learning and see how the job market might change in your sector. Regular upskilling is an insurance for your future career success. Nowadays, again, you can start learning anything online at any given time. There's plenty of resources available. There are plenty of free certifications that you could do and keep up with the job market. Also, always keep an eye on the job market. Even if you're not looking for a job, it'll help you stay up to date with whatever trends are in the market. And that's it for this video. I know it was a lot of information packed into a really short video, but I really wanted to make a video about what's happening to the middle class in Canada and what we can do about it. I have adopted all the strategies that I spoke about today, and I hope you do too. This video might have been a little dense, and I promise to break it down further in future videos. Remember to like, share and subscribe. I'll be back next week with another video. Till then, keep learning and stay on top of your finances. Until next time.